Hi everyone and welcome to the Remain Indoors podcast, where we just talk about what's on our mind. Actually, some news this time. We're going to have Lauren Thomas drop in on us a bit later. We're going to complain about our terrible children, and I'll tell you why my body's broken. Remain indoors. I should have remained indoors. I should have followed my own advice. And to berate me and complain with me, my brother in podcasting, Matt Two Rumpets. How's it going, Matt?
It's going great. You know, the best part about being old is there is always something to complain about.
Oh my goodness. Like I am so old and broken right now. In fact, I will wait until Lauren jumps onto the call to explain why. But we can't really gloss over the elephant in the room. It would be odd, I think, for you and me to not talk about the events of January 20th and the inauguration of Joe Biden. So I'm going to kick off there. Don't panic, guys. It's not going to be a heavy politics show. But, you know, I will say to you as a Dem supporter, a Democratic Party supporter in general, I don't think I'm slandering you. You've been on the record to say that. So I can say congratulations, like sports. Your team won politics, and it was confirmed yesterday. Well, you are happy?
Yes, actually, it was. To quote my wife, she said, "It's amazing how the headline "reasonably competent person shows up and does job" will affect you after the last 4 years." You know, it's just it was nice to see people who actually knew how to do their job, doing their job in an amazingly boring, no drama kind of way. And I realize it's maybe less fun for certain media types and, you know, people who thrive on that sort of thing. But at my age, I'm just like, oh, thank goodness. You know, that's all you ask for is just sort of a vaguely competent functioning of government at this point.
Okay, so I'm an outside observer, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you my opinion of American politics or certain characters or past presidents. I'm not fully qualified to say that. However, I've been pretty open about my general political views. I don't think I've ever said who I would vote for or which way I voted. But if you listen to my values, I think you could probably determine people that I would like and people that I wouldn't like. But from the outside, it certainly feels like there's a sense of relief that I'm sensing. So as an observer on the outside when I think it Bush and then Barack Obama?
Yeah.
Is that how it went? Was Bush a one-term president, Bush Jr.?
No, he was a deuce.
Right, he was a two. So when Obama came in, it felt like Democratic supporters such as yourself were partying in the street, you know, where you had like knocked over the establishment. This was a fresh wave. This was change. Was going to be amazing. It was like a revolution for liberals everywhere. On this occasion, it doesn't feel like that. I'm just sensing this just massive sense of relief from your side of the political aisle. Like I saw someone describe it as a lance being boiled, like just a pressure off you.
Well, yeah. Right. So just to back up a bit, from my experience when Obama was elected, it was not just that the Democrats had won. That's very important. But we have a split government. We have a legislature and we have the presidency. And as long as you've got your hands on some of those levers of power, you can negotiate and theoretically compromise and ideally come up with solutions that serve the country and not just specific people. But the thing about Obama was he was black. And that had never happened in our history. And when you're talking about a country whose history was built on slavery, it felt monumental because we all know that the Civil Rights Act and all the civil rights demonstration of the 70s made lots of seeming progress, but in many day-to-day ways, racism is still very present in our country and a real issue. And Obama, even though it's not going to fix everything immediately, electing him seemed to be saying America has become a civilized nation. We've grown up a little bit.
And also, I have to say, both the ladies in my house were just so thrilled for Kamala Harris being sworn in as vice president. Like both the ladies like found themselves inching forward, and eventually they were both just stood up. And you can really see, like, especially like my wife as a bitter 40-year-old woman who has always been kind of vaguely angry about being a woman, not because she doesn't like being a woman, but because of the way that society treats women. You could see it really meant a lot for second in command of the free world to be, a woman. And then think of my little daughter, who is, a quarter Southeast Asian, and a little girl growing up, starting to understand like patriarchy and the world ahead, and actually being a little bit angry about it already from age 8. You can just imagine what it meant to them. And I mean, your wife and daughter as well, they must have been choking up. I'm going to call it. I bet they were choking up.
Yeah, they were. And Kamala being part of this team is also, again, groundbreaking. And it's no secret that under the last 4 years, groups associated with and groups that promote white supremacy here in the United States have made lots of noise, recruited new members, and become more open about how they feel about things. And with Harris being part of that team and being elected, once again, it feels like the majority of Americans have stood up and said, sorry, you exist and you have your opinion, but you are not the majority. You're not the boss of us. We're not going to have that. You might sneak one in every now and then, but we're not going to have that. That's not the way this country is going to go. It's not the way it should go. And it doesn't really represent the idealized version of how our country should operate. And just to take that one step further, our international image as well, to me, and this is evidence-based, from hearing other people in other countries talk, because as you know, thanks to our other podcast, I do know people in other countries too.
Yeah.
And we've taken a real hit in terms of our relations with other countries, in terms of how we are perceived abroad. And as someone who likes to travel abroad and to visit places, it was also it was a personal bad thing, but it's just bad for our country. And it feels like we might be allowed to sit back at the grown-ups table now in the larger world community.
Well, I cannot comment on who my favoured candidate might have been in any of your elections or in any elections in the UK. I don't tend to state my vote or my preference. However, the wonderful thing about America for me was always summed up by Star Trek. Even in the 60s, when you had Star Trek and you had Chekhov on there and you had Sulu, I think the character was meant to be Japanese origin, but you had all these different nationalities, and Uhura as well, the first mixed race on-screen kiss, I think, as well, on Star Trek between Kirk and Uhura. And then, but that to me typified what America is. And that dream of like everyone coming in, everyone's an immigrant, in that society. Understand that there was a nation there before you got there. But that welcoming nature of going, right, well, you're adding to our collective. And I always saw this kind of swearing in ceremonies that you get when in films, when people moved there and they got their citizenship and they had to take a test to do that. But then they were welcomed. And it was something to achieve and to obtain. It wasn't, no, you're from elsewhere, you're different to us. It was, what can you add to us? Welcome, come in.
Yes.
And that was the wonderful thing about America. And that's the direction I would always want America to go towards.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, I grew up at a particular time where those kinds of themes were absolutely stressed as part of your primary education in public school. So the books, the materials, the curriculum, everything was aimed around making us more inclusive, because we had just passed the Civil Rights Act. We had Martin Luther King. There was a lot of movement towards that. And we saw as time went on that there was a change. And then that change has sort of filtered down to where there's been entire generations of people who've grown up without that. And I don't know, at the end of the day, your country is what the citizens make it. Government happens with the consent of the governed. We have some structural issues with the way our government works right now that exacerbates a lot of the underlying problems in our society. And the good news is,
yeah.
Well, I mean, for example, like you know a little bit about the Electoral College.
Yes, only because I've asked you, and you and Nick have explained it to me.
Right. So the issue with the Canadian, someone just used the word Canadian in the chat. Apologies about that. The issue with the Electoral College is that each state gets a certain share, and then the state's votes are what elect the president, not the direct population. So we look at the last election, it wasn't close in terms of the popular vote. 83 million voters voted for Biden, 70 something for Trump. So it was not, it wouldn't be like what you call a blowout.
No.
But it wasn't really close. But if you go and look at the individual states, the state that was closest was won by like slightly more, a couple of thousand votes. And there are 3 or 4 states like that where like literally if 30 or 40,000 people had changed their mind or not bothered, it'd be Trump again.
Yep.
So we've had this divergence between what the majority of people who live in the country want and what certain states want. And this disparity in representation, where a vote in Congress, if you live in Wyoming, is like 3 votes compared to a 1 vote if you live in, say, New York, is an issue that does need to be addressed.
Agreed. Now, Mark Greenow wants to address the fact that speech's length is rivaling Biden's at the moment. We are going to wrap up the politics chat in a moment, but I was listening to you talk, and it's all technically interesting, but I was like, oh my God, I've got PTSD. I don't think I can just listen to another old white guy going on at length, because I had so much of that yesterday. That speech yesterday, that inauguration speech, I'm not faulting the content. You go, Joe, you go and say your thing. But it was so long. It was so long. And the length wasn't even the main thing. It kept feeling like it was going to end. And he kept wrapping it up in quite a good way. And you'd go, well, okay, good. Well done. And then he'd just start again. It was like the worst school assembly ever.
Well, perhaps across the ocean it was that way. But it was nothing but a breath of fresh air here. And it was important. A lot of what he said was content that was meaningful. I mean, it's not just... as the news media was keen to point out, it's not just a stand up and say, I'm your president now, we're going to get things done. He's setting his agenda. He's telling everybody, I'm not here for this foolishness, but I will indulge that foolishness. And it was important, I think, on a larger level for him to open the door, to point out that he was going to govern for all Americans, even if there's a percentage of Americans that don't want him to govern for them.
Okay.
And that, but at the same time, you have a lot of people who were very concerned and worried about development. I mean, we had what amounted to an armed insurrection storm our House of Government 2 weeks ago. People are rightly concerned about that too. So it was a very difficult needle for him to thread.
Okay, and he threaded it at length. Good.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. Well, congratulations to the democracy of your country, an ultimately peaceful transfer of power, and the best of luck to everybody over that side of the pond. Wishing you guys well. If there's any way that we can start to stitch together the divided culture we seem to have in the English-speaking world, be it by deleting several apps just from existence. I don't mind. Like, I'm game. We've already deleted one. They got rid of one, didn't they? The one social media platform. So it shows it can be done. If something's causing genuine harm, you can just get rid of it. No one's violating your free speech. You can still write a blog. You can still run out in the street and yell, I don't like these kind of people. But if a platform is just a breeding ground for hate and is having an obviously bad effect on our country, or our countries or our society, then obviously you can do something about it. You don't just have to go, free speech. I don't care how much it's making life miserable for people. I need to have my social media platform. No, we can just change it. That doesn't infringe on your free speech at all. That is just, I don't know. It's that free speech doesn't mean you can just literally do anything you want. You can have your speech wherever. It doesn't have to be your right to have a megaphone and scream fire in a school playground. Well,
you bring up the very important distinction here. Yeah, we do have very very liberal in the classical word sense of it. Free speech laws here, more so than in many other countries. But that doesn't entitle your views to be published or amplified across any private medium. If I write a book, I can't demand that it be published, and my free speech is violated if it's not published.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Okay, that's better than the examples I was trying to fish for. Anyway, we've gotten very serious, Matt. We are going to have Lauren drop in at some point, and I'm going to talk some circuits. She was threatening to get us on a Zoom call to do circuits, and I was kind of game, but I'm not now, and I'll argue about that. I'll tell you why. I'll argue my case to Lauren. There's a few people in the chat mentioning the cameras. What's up, Matt? Go on.
No. I was going to say I can't, but then I took a shower, so.
And then
like a bad dad joke.
Right, okay. You and I have got a bit of a stutter on our Zoom call. That's why we did not mean to talk over each other. And sorry for my cough earlier. I was trying to hide the brand of fizzy drink that I was drinking, and then I ended up choking on it a bit, and I wasn't on mute, so apologies for that. The people commenting about the camera, there's an interesting behind-the-scenes techie discussion that some of you might be interested in. I know nothing about cameras and how to set them up, and it's been an interesting journey from just using a webcam to do all our YouTube stuff, like a laptop inbuilt webcam. And now we have a reasonable Logitech C920. In fact, we have two of those because to do a stream like this, I need one camera to be the stream cam that you see and one camera to speak to my co-conspirators. And we've been improving the lighting. So I've now got 4 LED spot lamps, Amazon specials, 15 quid each, I think they were, trying to put some light on me. And I'm trying to learn all the settings to make me seem more bright and present. And I seem to have made a step forward. But what I went out and did was I went out and bought not a 4K, I'm getting confused, a DSLR, a digital SLR camera to use as a webcam, because Canon have software now where it's a lot less complicated. You can just put in a USB. So it will just run off USB. You get an adapter to plug it in. I had it set up, tried it all out. I got a new one from Amazon, and I was really willing to invest in the product and go, well, I'm on screen 3 times a week, so I'm going to invest in it and make it good. It is now listed back on eBay. I am selling it, Matt, because I realized that I wasn't the limiting factor. I thought a camera will magically fix everything. But every adjustment I made to settings and lighting to make the DSLR look good, I also had the webcam running alongside it, and it improved the webcam as well. And I went, hang on a minute. The camera isn't the limiting factor. I am.
Yeah, well, or in this case, the lighting is. The Canon, well, a DSLR, digital single lens reflex camera, is going to be the best thing you can have if you're a photographer. And oftentimes they're good enough now that you can properly use them you can film movies on them. They're that good. But mainly because the glass, the lenses are much sharper and will pick up images in lower light better, but also because the sensor the image is received by is larger than you'd have in a Logitech. But as you rightly point out, you have to get to situations where you have a perceivable difference in order for that money, that investment to be worth it. And if you don't have a basic setup where that's possible, well, then, yeah, that's really where you should start.
So somebody said about backlighting. I have actually got, it's off. Hang on. I was trying to look for the white lines. It's off. Hang on. There we go. I've got a bit of backlighting now to light up my shoulders and look and do a little white outline kind of all around me. And now whenever I watch TV programs, I can see it. I can see the backlighting on everywhere. So it's kind of ruined watching TV for me because now all I'm looking at is the lighting. But yeah, anyway, we've made progress in that way. And it's an example of the kind of choices you have to make to try and improve and invest in your product. And, my wife's saying to me, my brothers who are carpenters, if they need a drop saw, if they need a 300 quid drop saw, they'll buy it because they need that for their business. And I was sitting there for ages going, I don't know. Finally bit the bullet, realized I wasn't ready for it, and put it back on eBay. Although I suspect I'm going to make a profit from that. I've accidentally scalped camera prices on eBay.
Hey, good for you. It's always nice when things turn out positively that way and you don't lose money on those investments that aren't what you needed after all.
Do you know what I am losing?
Patience?
I'm losing the early hours of the day. So we're in a lockdown routine in the UK where there's just no impetus for us to get up at 7 o'clock anymore, which means that there's no impetus for us to go to bed early anymore. And so we've now gotten into a cycle where, to our shame, the kids are just waking up and having breakfast, and then we're up just in time for school to start. It's like, I guess we've got to sort out their schooling and stuff now. But apart from that, we're pretty much, I think I'm up 1:30 every night, and I'm rarely waking up before 8 at the moment.
Wow. I tend to stay up late. My wife goes to bed early. She goes to bed before my daughter even goes to bed now, at this point, remarkably. But we have, she still has school to get to, and we still get up and do like that morning breakfast thing where we're all at the table together for a bit of time before school starts. But yeah, I would be delighted to get up later if possible.
And we're joined on the line by girlrunninglate.com's Lauren Thomas. Are you there? What are the chances we can hear Lauren first time with no problems?
Hello.
Oh, we can hear you. There is sound. And you've got a good background and everything. And you're dressed, which is slightly better than I was doing earlier today. I was in my dressing gown before we went live, and I was like, do I have to put clothes on? And I did. So we're just talking about the kind of general lack of motivation to do normal people things during lockdown.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. I can exercise and that's about it. But being a normal person is not really in my remit right now.
We had a Zoom party, and me and my wife thought it would be a funny joke to take it really seriously and get like fully dressed up in like formal clothes. So she put on like a nice dress with earrings and everything and a tiara. And I wore a tuxedo. So I was there, tie and everything. And but because my wife has the house like a sauna, I instantly regretted it, and I was just like sweating. I was like, no, that 5-minute joke's over now, and I'm done. But there is no reason to get dressed. I'm heavily invested in tracksuits, and but you just look like you're dressed for the office. So I was just like, wow, Lauren's motivated.
Well, I've got like elasticated bottoms on. This is like Sweaty Betty stuff. So it's like the luxe active wear kind of stuff. So it's all very comfy and very stretchy.
Okay, good. Because you need stretchiness because you are a dedicated athlete. And I basically bring you onto the show here and whenever I can on BBC Radio Cambridgeshire to shame my round apple-shaped butt into doing exercise and be motivated. So motivate us, Lauren. Please motivate me.
You sent me a video this morning of your sweaty little face, and you'd done some exercise this morning, hadn't you?
It's when I know I'm speaking to you, I feel like I have to go out there. No, so what we're doing at the moment is because the kids don't have any PE or sports clubs or anything like that. They're normally into like climbing and things and have like, team sports. But there's nothing like that at the moment. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, we've been going out and about, and I've been taking them on runs, forest runs, a little bit of circuit training, where we'd go on a run and then we'd stop and do exercises, essentially so they could rest. And the limiting factor has been, no offense, Vivi, 8-year-old girl is the least capable of going out and doing like a 5K all in one go. However, today we did dedicated circuits. So we did walk, sprint, run, lengths, between lampposts. And then at each end, we started off with one of each exercise, 4 exercises, all the way up to 10. Took about half an hour. At the end, Dad was the limiting factor. I was absolutely destroyed, and they loved it. They were sweating, but they were fine.
Yeah, you were fully like red faced, dripping with sweat, and then you panned the camera to Vivi, and she's just like fresh face as anything. It didn't even look like she'd even been outside, to be honest with you.
And she was really enjoying the fact that they'd broken Daddy a little bit because the exercises, they had to lift like little tiny 8-year-old and 10-year-old bodies. I'm lifting up 40 years of just turgid bitter hate up and down with every press up.
But the strength is equivalent to your size. You can't use that argument. So yes, they're only like lifting 8-year-old bodies or pressing 8-year-old bodies, but they've only got 8-year-olds' arms and muscles. So stop using that as an excuse.
So we do like one exercise we did. I'll tell you the exercises we did and see if you like our selection of exercises to start with. This is our very first circuit training. My first circuit training in about a decade. We did squats, star jumps. I don't know if there's a name for that. We went down and squatted and then did a star jump.
It's like a plyometric style jump, maybe.
Sure. Then we go to the other end, and this is my daughter's one. She really likes planking. I have never done planking before.
What?
I've never done planking before.
You've never done a plank?
Never done a plank till today. I do not like it. We started off with 5 seconds, then 10 seconds, then 15 seconds, then 20 seconds. And then after that, I was like, we are not going up another increment. And so every fourth exercise was 20 seconds of planks. And by the 10th one, I'm sitting there like she's counting. She took over the counting and she's counting 1, 2. I'm like, count faster! Count. Yeah, planking, man. Who knew how hard that was? But it's like a full body workout.
Yeah, it's engaging. I mean, it's using the engine, right? So it's just engaging your core and getting all of the muscles to engage as well. So it's a really good core builder.
I think that's why I struggled, because I've never paid any attention to what people call core strength. I don't know what people mean by core strength. It's like all the sides and everything and all that kind of muscles in your trunk. I've never really paid particular attention to that. I've always been a lift things up and down and look at me lift the thing up and down. I've always neglected core strength.
And as a runner, it's one of the most important things you can do, because it determines your posture. It means you're more upright, which means you can breathe more easily. So to work on your core is one of the best things you can do. And Pilates is really good for that. If you're looking for like a supplementary training to your running, Pilates is such a good partner for it.
Okay, tell me what Pilates is. I've heard the word.
It's a little bit like yoga, but it's more core based, and it's more kind of isolating the muscles rather than kind of flowing through movements. You'll focus just on your glutes or just on your core or just on your quad muscles.
Okay. Matt, are you a Pilates guy? Are you a...
No.
How's your core strength? Because you're fit. How do you do around circuits? You could run and cycle. How would you do on a circuit?
I think I do okay up to a point where you like my joints would give out. But I do what is called like HIIT or high impact interval training, and there's a reasonable amount of core. There's planks and a lot of the plyometric stuff in there as well. I do one that's sort of focused on those muscles, because when I was a cyclist and like that, I mostly focused on being faster on a bicycle, and I didn't do so many of the supplementary exercises. But it does make a difference to sort of get them to a base level of functioning.
So Lauren, do you think that planking is going to help me run then? So I can keep that. Should we keep that as part of our circuit?
As long as your form is good. It's all dependent on good form, because you can do a rubbish plank.
Little girl was yelling at me, Vivi. She was yelling, "Daddy, get your belly off the floor." And I'm like, no, that's just where it goes. My back is straight. It just curves all the way down there. That's not my fault.
You're like a sausage dog dragging its belly on the ground.
Or like the cats, they got the... Yeah.
The swaying belly bit. Most of it was jacket, by the way. But Nick says she's going to come out on a walk for the next one, and she'll film us doing
Amazing.
it. But you were talking about perhaps doing like Zoom circuits with me and Matt, maybe even humiliate ourselves and remain indoors. And I'd said to the kids and that, I'd said, well, you could join in with that as well and be part of it. They're fine with it. But while we were doing the circuits today, when it got to like the 6th or 7th round, and the other 2 exercises were just full sits and press ups, by the way, so 4, the thought going through my head as I struggled to pick myself up off of a sit up was, I am so glad there's not a live stream of this. Like, I'm delighted only my kids can see it. Because a lot of those sit ups, I spent a lot longer on the lying down bit, the halfway transition point, than I did on the uppy bit.
Well, I don't think anyone's going to blame you for that. But what we could do it in like a month's time, to give yourself time to work
build
up to it. Because I'm not going to be as kind as your kids were.
Okay, well, what do you think about the length of it? So I would say it's about, I don't know, 20 meters between the shuttles. And we would walk, do an exercise, jog, do an exercise, sprint, do an exercise, walk, do that. And we did it like that with like 40 exercises. We did have leg thrusts in there as well, but after 3, the old army knee kicked in, and I said, I can't do the leg things today. And they're still teasing me about that. But when you feel a tingle, I think you have to kind of respect your body a little bit.
You say that, but you say that when you're running, you're quite happy to run on a tingle. You're just using that as an excuse on your flipping interval training. You are.
Shamed.
I know your game.
Shamed by Lauren. Unbelievable. Look, when you pull out the veteran card, you're meant to get a free pass. You have just completely washed all that away. So that won't work anymore. That was my best defense. But yeah. So how do you think though? Length and type of circuits for a basic circuit, that was all right. You think?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. I mean, what I would normally do for circuit is maybe do like different exercises in different rounds. So I might do like cardio session, then strength, and then end on cardio again to kind of split it up a bit. And normally it would be working for like 20 seconds or 10 seconds of rest, or 40 seconds, 20 seconds of rest. And then make sure you use exercises where you can always adapt it. So if somebody has got an injury, or they have got they're not quite as advanced as some other people, you want to make sure that each exercise has adaptations for different people.
So what's the adaptation for like the leg thrusts? If my knee's starting to go, but the kids want to keep doing it, what can we, how would we adapt it? Can I just do one leg?
What is your, I don't know what your interpretation of a leg thrust is.
Oh,
you're going to have to demonstrate.
You sort of go down into a squat, and then you put your hands, and then you kind of go out into the press up position, essentially, and then bring your knees back.
It's basically like half a plank. So it's half burpee, sorry. So you're not doing the actual press up and jump. You're just jumping your legs in and out.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's a squat thrust. Yeah. Okay.
Squat thrust. There we go. That's the one.
Well, you could do it. You could step your foot round. So step alternate feet round instead of jumping both feet in at the same time. Step one foot round, back. Step the other foot round and back. You know, there's always an option that you can adapt. So it's still the fundamentals of the exercise are the same, but you can change it slightly.
It was very humbling to have a fitness session where the kids really were in much better condition by the end, to the point that I was like, right, we'd found a car park near the house, and I was going, okay, we'll just walk back and stretch it off. And they're like, no, let's run back. And I'm like, fine, I guess. I was like, I could really do without running back. Circuit training, completely different kind of fitness required than for running. So I think someone who just ran and is very fit could go into a circuit training thing like that and be surprised how hard it is.
Yeah, I mean, when I've coached running before, often I'll be coaching different abilities. So the chats or women who finish first, they will have to do some circuit exercises while we wait for everybody else to finish. Right. And I think some of them aren't regular interval trainers. They don't regularly do circuits. And it did surprise them that how hard that was. Because when you're running, you kind of know you're going to be doing it for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and you can kind of pace yourself accordingly. But obviously, it's such short, intense bursts of exercises when you're doing circuits. It does require a different mindset. But I quite like that. I like being told 20 seconds or 40 seconds because I can really focus in that moment and think, right, 40 seconds, yeah, I can 100% do that. And then you know there's a rest coming. So I think it is a different mindset, but I actually find it quite easy to have those rests.
What do you think, Matt? Are we up for it to have a Lauren Thomas beasting session? Would you do it?
Yeah, I think I would be happy to participate in such a thing, just because, well, you know, I really have no, I really don't care how I look. I just want to see you in one of these sessions with her.
So look, you sound like my best man, Dave Brown. When we were going through phase 2 training together, he's like a big Geordie guy. I've probably told this story before. A big Geordie guy, 6'4", and in nightclubs, he would always go out of his way to really crouch down when we were talking to me, to really emphasize how much bigger than me he was. So he would always be like, you know, oh, what you seeing, man? And he'd like lean all the way down so I looked really tiny. And then he would say, like in any kind of squatted run, or like, you know, you have those tabs where you see like a troop of squaddies with the big backpacks on and they're just marching in time and they all look like they want to die now. And he'd always say like, oh, I love doing PT with you, like, because, you know, however bad it is for me, I know you're suffering worse. And so like, that's what you've just done to me there, Matt. You're like, oh yeah, it'll be bad for me, but I want to see you suffer as well.
Yeah, I do.
Crazy. And see me suffer you will. Yeah, different mindset required. It was a big wake up, actually. It was a big shock to my body to kind of go, oh yeah, I remember that. And like, I've got the tingle in my chest where I feel like I have Chris Hemsworth style pecs now instead of flabby man boobs. But you know, the feeling itself is self-perpetuating, isn't it? You get that good feeling of a burn, you get confidence, and that actually eventually will breed something similar to a male chest.
It's those endorphins, that's what you're talking about. All of the exercise brings about the happy endorphins, makes you want to do even more. It's good for you.
Yeah.
It's good for mind, body and soul.
Talk to me about layers, because it's winter and we're running. And I looked on your Instagram page, which is mostly just pictures of your feet. And,
here we go.
And trainers.
There's 2 pictures of my feet. There's 2 pictures of my feet.
It's 20% just your feet, all your feet at weird high angles as well, doing strange yoga poses in cycling gear.
Yep. So layers, I have been running for 10 years and I still get it wrong a lot of the time. But my main problem is that when I do my long run on a Sunday with my best mate, Pete, we go for a run, and we always like to get coffee afterwards. So we have to dress accordingly because we'll stop for coffee and have to walk a mile back to his house. So you have to kind of consider the fact that you're going to stop running, the sweat on your body's going to start cooling, you're going to get cold in this kind of weather. So we always kind of over layer, end up carrying layers or tying them around our waist, which I hate.
Yeah, that's annoying.
But normally it's really annoying. So I do find a hat really, really helps. It just traps all that heat in, and it makes a big, big difference. I've got like a couple of bobble hats that I absolutely love for running, and I wear them all the time. But generally, even in this kind of really wintry weather, you only need a couple of layers if you're going to be starting and finishing in the same place. You don't want to, you'll overheat really quickly otherwise. And that's a mistake that I keep making. And gloves really help as well. Just those kind of making sure the bits that are normally exposed is covered up. So hat, gloves, a neck wrap thing as well will really help.
A neckerchief.
Just like a
little
cravat. Not a cravat, not a bow tie. A gaiter, there we go. That's what I was thinking of. A neck gaiter, yeah. Just like a little like headscarf cut material, just wrap around your necks. Just like these little small touches will make a big difference.
Yeah, but I boil. Like within then a mile, you've got to take it all off, and then, you know, and then like I ended up stuffing it all in my running top, and then I looked like I had an even bigger belly. And I was like, oh, it's a nightmare.
You're not meant to start with it. I'm amazed, but like, because I've been running long enough now, and we do have a winter here. I have layers that work in specific temperature zones, and the only thing that and Lauren, you were absolutely right about this. The only thing that I notice is that the one thing that is true for me is that I put on gloves at a much warmer temperature than I would anything else, because your hands, because you hold them up like this while you run, your hands get really cold once you're out for about 15 or 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, and I do find that my ears get really cold as well, which is why the hat really helps me. So it's just about sort of protecting those slightly exposed areas, really.
Yeah, and what I remember from cycling is like your choice is I will either be cold for the first 5 minutes of this, or I'll be too hot for the next hour and 15.
So I caught my kids out a few weeks ago when we started running, and a little girl complained she was cold, and I was like, oh, okay, if you're cold, sprint. So we sprinted to get nice and hot and bothered. And so now when I say to them, I say like, right, who's cold? And they go, no, not me. I'm not I'm not cold. Oldest trick in the book, that. Lauren, we'll leave you to your working day now. Thank you so much. I like this little drop-in sneak attack. Talk to us a bit about fitness, and then go back to just complaining about how really terrible and hard it is to be a middle-aged man. It's our genuine complaints. But I know, when will we cut a break? When will we ever get a break? It's just because
those middle-aged white men have it so hard.
So
hard.
You haven't got a wife, Lauren, so you don't understand. You don't understand the challenge.
I've got one of you.
We get Mr. Running Late on next time, and then he can tell us. His challenge. Did you say that your mother was watching as well today?
She said she was going to. Yeah. So whether or not she's here, I don't know. But
we'll say hello. You can say hi, Mum. It's okay.
Hi, Mum.
Excellent, brilliant.
Oh, bless her heart.
Oh, we'll hang up.
She's got her jab booked, so we're very happy to get her vaccination at the weekend.
Fantastic.
Good news. Good news.
Yeah, no, I think we can all do without waving through windows again. Do you know what I mean? I think we can all do with just the smothering people in hugs. In fact, there's going to be a lot of parents who are in danger of suffocation from huggage, isn't it? It's going to be like, okay, you can let go now. No, it's been a year. I'm not letting go.
Mum is very high risk of murder, without a doubt.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you, Lauren. Have a great day, and we'll speak to you soon.
Nice to see you. Bye.
Bye.
Well, what do you think? What do you think of that, Matt? The little kind of idea to sometimes just have people just drop in, and they don't have to commit to like a whole hour and produce content. We can just have people come in and out. Oh, I've lost everyone.
With the show.
Oh, go on. Sorry, say that sentence again, Matt. I think I lost you.
No, I think it works great with the show. It's like goes with the flow. They drop into the conversation. They say hi, and then we and then we bounce.
Awesome. I'm going to end the show quickly by talking about zombie apocalypses, as is my wont, because I just found out that no one in my estate could survive a zombie apocalypse.
Well, I'm not really surprised. I think, having watched enough zombie films, most people don't survive the apocalypse.
You're not supposed to. We covered it a little bit. By the way, how fun was that chat with the Valverde Broadcasting last week?
I loved that. That was loads of fun. Can't wait for them to come back.
Yeah, that was fun talking about stuff. But afterwards, we ended up chatting for like another half an hour afterwards with Richard Jackson. And we were talking about some zombie films because he said, oh, I should have said the original Walking Day of the Deads, the Romano ones. And I like those because there was never... The whole point of a zombie apocalypse is that there's no hope, isn't it? It's that they are going to win, but you're watching the spiraling towards the end times. And it's too tempting now for apocalyptic films to have this ray of hope at the end and like how they're going to recover. And it's like, no, an apocalypse is an apocalypse. Apocalypse means you're ending. Everything's ending. It's a zompocalypse. They're going to win.
Yeah. And that, we didn't talk about this film either, but the John Carpenter, The Thing movie is, although not technically a zombie movie, is a wonderful example of that, where it's nothing but darker and darker and darker. Still, all hope is lost.
All hope is lost. And that's, I liked The Road for that reason as well. It really did just show, do you remember The Road? I can't remember who was in it now, but basically like animal life stopped. Nothing was growing, and it was just the resources that were left on the planet that everyone had to fight over. And it was just getting worse and worse. And then they ruined it at the end with a little bug that like showed, oh look, there's hope, it's all starting again. I was like, no, that's not the point. And that is not the point of this conversation either. The point of the conversation is everyone on my estate couldn't go like one day without water. And not water in the town, specifically water to our houses. Our estate had a burst pipe, and we couldn't get water out of the tap, so we couldn't shower, we couldn't bath, we couldn't do, all the millions of things you need water for. But our local Facebook group, we have a Facebook group just for the estate, they were going mad. You would think that we lived in a war-torn estate. The second they were denied the exact convenience of water, they just seemed completely lost. It was absolute like madness. And I get it, because you can't flush, you can't cook, it's hard to do stuff. But we got the notification that it was a burst pipe, figured that it wasn't gonna go away, it wasn't gonna get solved. So I got in the car and I went to the local garage and I spent a tenner on like 8 massive 5-litre jugs of water. So then we came back and I filled the toilet tanks up. And every time someone needed a big toilet, I went, hang on a minute, and I filled the tank up to make sure that they could flush it. And okay, well that's that. It's not ultra convenient, but we can drink water, we can boil kettles, we can cook. But none of them would do it. They were just going like, they were demanding that the water company send out pallets of water. They were calling the company, like demanding a refund. I'm like, guys, just like take a second to look after yourself. But I think if there was any kind of food shortage or water shortage on any kind of local scale, I think people would fall apart. I don't think people know what to do anymore without the exact conveniences we're used to.
You bring up an interesting point. It makes me think of back in the early 2000s, but post 9/11, we had a blackout in New York City, which, because we lived on the 18th floor, meant that we 100% had no water for 3 days. No refrigerator, no nothing. And, it was like, it was annoying. You ate a lot of sandwiches. You cooked, because we had a gas stove. You got a match. You could light your stove at least and cook. So you cooked all the food you could before it went bad. And then after that, you ate sandwiches or, 10 stuff. And yeah, it was a drag to walk 18 flights down to get water. But, when it happened, it was like, already, like you saw tips, and it was like, oh, fill your tub up with water.
Yeah.
So you have like a big reservoir of water to do things like dishes with, and non-potable things you're not going to drink water
or even just fill the flush up. But yeah. But people, honestly, I even said in that Facebook group a bit later on, I said, oh, by the way, I think I've got extra and I'm willing to go and just drive to the garage and get more. Who needs some? A £5 will get you these big 4 bottles. And I got ignored. Actually ignored, and people were there still talking about this relief drop that they had demanded from the water company and when it would come. Eventually, at 1 a.m, a poor guy had been sent out with a couple of pallets of water bottles, and he put them down in the street, and people were like, wait, I checked the next day because I didn't wait up for it, but I checked the next day, and the chat in that group, they were like, when's it going to be here? And people were like, only take what you need. And like, they were honestly talking about it like it was this precious resource. And I just went, wow, I would, one day or two of food shortages, I think people would be in the streets breaking into other people's houses, setting on each other. Like, it really wouldn't take a lot. What's the famous phrase? Everyone is 3 meals away from civil unrest or something like that. But yeah, I think the estate would have gone to war after a couple of days without water in the tap.
Well, they might have, but it's also a thing of we live in an age of sharply worded memos and consumer complaints, and there's a downside to the customer is always right philosophy that seems to have invaded our entire world. I mean, yeah, you want your customers, but at a certain point, you got to ask yourself, what am I doing to my business? But in this case, I don't think it's unreasonable that the water company that's contracted to give you water fails to provide water. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask them to have a plan.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. But they spent the whole day without water complaining about it, and we just had water the whole time because we just spent, a tenner. That'll get us out of that. And I offered some spare bottles to everybody, and no one took us up on it.
Well, you just know how to make friends and influence people.
No, I just think I think they would rather feel like it's like they were playing at being deprived, and there was almost a thrill and a joy in it of like, oh, look, we're suffering, look at us suffering.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's that too. There is a certain joy in just complaining about having something meaningful to complain about, even if it's a situation you can fairly easily rectify. So I don't know, people are bored, and a lot of trouble in the world has been caused because people are bored.
Well, I'm just
going to leave it at that.
Yep. We had an issue with boredom as well in our house, but I will save that for another day. All I will say is that we have been playing a lot of Mancala, which is I put a picture of it on my Twitter account @SpannersReady. Go and have a look at that. It's just a little simple wooden game where you have 4 peas in pods, and you move the peas around to defeat an opponent. Loads and loads of fun. You can pick it up for about £8 off of Amazon. Mancala. Look for that. You can email Matt, mattpt55@gmail.com. He's also at mattpt55 on Twitter. And I'm spannersready@gmail.com if you want to email me too. I think we're going to wrap it up there. I had a whole thing on how we've relieved. It's not so much boredom, but it's filling in the gaps for the stuff we would normally do. So we normally get satisfaction from going to the place and doing the thing. We can no longer go to the place and do the thing. So what's taken place of that? Like, you have to substitute those things. If you've lost out on hobbies, you need other interests to get you through this lockdown time. And I spent a lot of time, I think, like everyone, thinking about and talking about, well, when this is all over, when it goes back to normal. But we abandoned that fairly quickly and just went, no, this is the world we're in. This is what we're doing. We need to adapt to that. And we're having to readjust and do that all over again now, I think, for this fresh wave. But I don't think it's going to end very, very soon. And a few months is a long time, especially for kids. So we'll talk a little bit about next week about adjusting to this final push of COVID world, I think, and how we can all adapt around it. I'll put a shout out in the Slack group, and we'll make it a group thing, and we'll come back next Thursday, Matt, at 2 p.m. What do you think?
I think I like that idea.
All right, well, let's get out of here. You can follow us on Twitter @IndoorsRemain. We've got our F1 podcast if you're interested in that, @MissApexF1. Check out Spanners 90s Radio. Vivi was my little guest, my 8-year-old. She was my guest on the show. We might have to drag Matt on there at some point as well. But whatever you do, remain indoors and work hard and be kind and have fun and wounds heal and chicks dig scars and glory lost forever.
Perfectly timed.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't nail that one.